You can feel it, can't you? That pressure in your chest. That strange calm mixed with dread. Everyone else thinks the storm has passed, but you know better. This is not the end. This is the moment before revelation. You were never meant to be comfortable here. Not after what you saw. Not after what they did behind your back while smiling to your face. The betrayal wasn't random. The isolation wasn't accidental. And what's coming next? It's going to shock even you. They believe you've already peaked, that you survived your trials and came out healed. They're wrong, because this final step was hidden on purpose. And once you cross it, there is no return, only awakening, separation, and karmic justice that arrives like a flood. Stay with me. By the end of this story, you'll understand why everything had to happen exactly this way. You thought the chaos was over, the nights where your mind wouldn't shut off, the days where your chest felt tight for no reason, the feeling that something unseen was circling you, waiting. Now, everything looks normal, too normal. People around you have relaxed. They laugh again. They tell you, see, you made it through. They speak as if the story has reached its happy ending, but your body doesn't celebrate. Your nervous system stays alert, like a soldier who knows the war hasn't really ended, just gone quiet. You move through your days with a strange hollowness, not sadness, not fear, something sharper, awareness. You notice details others miss. The way silence lingers a second too long. The way certain names still make your pulse jump. You smile when expected, but inside, you're listening for something deeper. And then the signs start slipping through. Numbers follow you on clocks, receipts, license plates. Dreams feel less like dreams and more like messages you wake up carrying in your chest. Old emotions rise without warning, then disappear just as fast, leaving you shaken and oddly clear. Meanwhile, somewhere else they relax. The ones who doubted you. The ones who smiled while quietly waiting for you to break. In their world, you're no longer concerned. You survived, sure, but only barely. Or so they think. Late one night, alone in the quiet, a thought lands fully formed in your mind. Not loud, not dramatic, certain. This calm isn't peace. It's the pause. And whatever is coming next is already moving toward you. You don't notice it all at once. It comes in flashes, small memories resurfacing with new weight. A laugh that lingered too long. A compliment that felt slightly off. A moment where the room went quiet the second you walked in. At the time, you brushed it off. You were tired, sensitive, overthinking. That's what they trained you to believe. Now, you see it differently. You replay conversations in your mind, and suddenly the tone shifts. Words you once heard as concern now sound like calculation. Advice reveals itself as subtle redirection. They weren't trying to help you rise. They were trying to manage how high you could go. Behind closed doors, they spoke your name without warmth. In third-person glimpses, you see them clearly now. Leaning in, lowering their voices, bonding over shared doubt. They dissected your struggles like proof. They mistook your vulnerability for weakness and your silence for submission. Some of them envied you. Others feared you. None of them truly understood you. What hurts isn't just a betrayal. It's the realization that it was ongoing. Not one moment. Not one person. A pattern. Every time you began stepping into clarity, someone close questioned your reality. Every time you felt powerful, someone reminded you of your past. They smiled while doing it. Soft voices, concerned eyes, emotional misdirection dressed as care. You feel the grief hit next. Heavy, unavoidable. You mourn the versions of them you believed in, the future you imagined with those people in it. But beneath the grief, something colder settles in, precision. Awareness sharpens. You stop asking why and start seeing how. This wasn't random. This wasn't personal. It was positional. You were carrying something they couldn't access. And instead of rising with you, they try to keep you where they felt safe. That's when it lands, the truth you can't unsee. The betrayal wasn't the test. It was the training. And as that realization locks into place, another thought follows, darker and more unsettling. If this was only preparation, what kind of force are you being prepared for? It almost destroyed you, not in one dramatic moment, but slowly, piece by piece. There were nights you stared at the ceiling, bargaining with silence. Days you moved through life on autopilot, unsure when you stopped recognizing yourself. You didn't just lose people. You lost certainty, identity, the version of you that believed effort alone could protect you. Frame the CTA as a tool for alignment, clarity, or protection, something that helps the viewer stabilize their awakening or prepare for the final step. You remember the breaking point, the moment your body gave up before your mind could catch up, the tears that came without a clear reason, the exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. You asked the universe for relief, for clarity, for something to stop the unraveling. Instead, everything familiar fell away. Roles you once clung to dissolved. Titles stopped meaning anything. Validation dried up. You were left alone with yourself, stripped down to the parts that couldn't be taken. It felt like punishment, like abandonment, like you had failed some invisible test no one warned you about. But now, standing here, you see the pattern. While you were breaking, they were watching. In quiet third-person scenes, the antagonists misread the moment completely. They called it your downfall. They assumed your withdrawal meant defeat. They told each other you'd finally been humbled, finally put back in your place. They didn't notice what was actually happening. Your nervous system was rewiring. Your intuition was sharpening. You stopped reacting and started observing. You learned to sit in silence without needing approval. Pain forced you inward, and in that darkness, something ancient woke up. You didn't come back louder. You came back clearer. You no longer chased connection. You sensed alignment. You no longer explained yourself. You felt truth settle in your body before words ever formed. The breaking burned away illusions you didn't know you were carrying. And that's when the realization hits with terrifying calm. What shattered you wasn't meant to end you. It was meant to empty you. Because only an empty vessel can carry what's coming next. And as that truth settles in your chest, another question rises, heavy, inevitable, unavoidable. If this was only the initiation, what happens when the real trial begins? You don't announce your transformation. You don't explain yourself. You simply stop performing. And that's when the shift becomes visible, not in you, but around you. Something about your presence changes. Your words are fewer, but they land heavier. Your silence stretches longer, and people start filling it with their own insecurities. You're no longer available for emotional labor, no longer predictable, no longer feeding the roles they assigned you. You didn't confront anyone, but confrontation finds them anyway. In third-person moments, the ones who once felt comfortable around you begin to feel uneasy. They can't quite name it. You're polite, calm, detached, yet they sense something has slipped out of their control. Jokes don't land. Guilt doesn't work. Nostalgia feels forced. Cracks appear where confidence once lived. Conversations they thought were private resurface. Alliances they relied on grow unstable. Small inconveniences stack into visible stress. They start explaining themselves without being asked, defending things you never accused them of. Their masks, once carefully curated, begin to shift, revealing flashes of panic underneath. You watch without satisfaction, without anger. That surprises you most of all. There's no urge to prove anything. No need to correct the record. Truth doesn't require performance. It just waits. This is karma in its quiet phase. Not thunder, not punishment. A recalibration, energy returning to its source. You didn't summon it. You stepped out of its way. They feel it too, though they wouldn't call it that. They call it bad luck. Timing, stress, anything but consequence. Still, they sense the center of gravity has moved, and you are no longer orbiting them. Late one evening, alone with your thoughts, the realization settles in slowly, unmistakably. This isn't the reckoning. This is the warning. A soft one. A merciful one, because for the cycle to fully close, something more is required from you, something you've been delaying. And as that awareness tightens in your chest, you understand the next step won't happen to you. It has to happen through you. Chapter 5, the final step you've been avoiding. You already know what it is. You've known for a while now. That's why you've been moving slower than usual. That's why certain decisions feel heavy in your hands, like they carry more weight than they should. The final step doesn't announce itself loudly. It waits patiently, knowing you'll recognize at the moment you're ready. And ready doesn't mean fearless. This step isn't about confrontation. It's not about exposing anyone or demanding closure. It's quieter than that and far more permanent. It asks you to release something you've been holding on to long after it stopped serving you. The need to be understood by the people who never truly saw you. You feel the resistance in your body, the old loyalty, the memories, the hope that maybe, one day, they'll realize what they did, that they'll apologize in a way that finally makes sense of the pain. Letting go of that hope feels like another loss, and in many ways, it is. In third-person glimpses, they sense the distance widening. They reach out casually, test the connection, drop familiar phrases, inside jokes, emotional hooks. Some lean on guilt, others on nostalgia. They don't know they're already too late, because you're no longer deciding whether to choose yourself. You're deciding how fully. Grief moves through you one last time, not sharp but deep. You mourn the version of yourself who waited, who explained, who tried to earn safety. That version can't come with you where you're going. The moment arrives quietly. No witnesses, no ceremony, just a steady breath and a clear internal yes. You stop seeking permission. You stop managing reactions. You stop carrying what was never yours to fix. And the instant you do, something shifts, not outside, inside. You feel it lock into place, a point of no return. The choice activates everything that's been waiting in the wings. And as the air around you feels suddenly charged, one truth becomes unavoidable. This wasn't the end of the process. This was the trigger. When it finally moves, it moves fast, not chaotic, precise, like a system correcting itself after being thrown off balance for too long. The moment you release what bound you, the current changed direction. You didn't push. You didn't demand. You simply stepped aside, and that was enough. In third-person fragments, you watch it unfold. The ones who once controlled the narrative begin losing their footing. Words catch up to them. Patterns repeat, only this time without you there to absorb the impact. They face versions of themselves they spent years avoiding, not because you wished it, but because karma no longer had interference. There's no triumph in watching it happen, no rush of revenge. What you feel instead is distance, clarity, a strained compassion that doesn't invite reconnection. You understand now, justice isn't loud. It's inevitable. Your world shifts too, but in the opposite direction. Opportunities appear without forcing. Conversations feel clean. You no longer explain your boundaries. They're felt. Your nervous system rests in a way it never could before, because it finally recognizes safety. This is what embodiment feels like. You carry yourself differently now, not armored, grounded. You've crossed the threshold from someone surviving lessons to someone who integrates them. You no longer seek signs. You trust the signal within you. Silence becomes fertile instead of empty. The crown isn't something placed on your head. It's something you grow into. As the dust settles, one final realization emerges. Quiet, steady, unshakable. This wasn't the end of your story. It was the end of your preparation. What comes next will require discernment, restraint, and power held with intention. Not everyone is meant to follow you forward, and you're finally at peace with that. The flood has passed. What remains is you awake, aligned, and no longer waiting. And somewhere beyond the horizon, a greater calling stirs. End the script by reminding the viewer that awareness is activation. Invite them to stay connected, comment, or reflect, not as followers, but as conscious participants in their own awakening.